well, thanks for coming to my talk. I haven't written a script. I thought I'd just go through the works that are in the show, and I don't want to explain them. I just want to show you them and give you an idea of what they are, the title, what they're made of. And if you've got any questions, you can just go to that little box and do the raise your hand thing, or you can put a question in the chat and we'll see it. So this one, I think, as you go into the gallery, it's one of the first pictures you'll see as you go up the steps. It's called Lunette, Memento Mori. It's actually, I started painting it years ago, like when I was doing the MA at Chelsea College of Art. I made a painting. It was a kind of like a medieval figure of a woman with red hair, and over her shoulder was a sort of kind of ghostly kind of grandmothery figure, and it had the moon in it, which has remained in the painting. And I took it in, and we had a sort of midterm show, and I put it on the wall and I painted out from it onto the wall. And I had carpet down and sculpture. I used to make cast bronze sculptures and kind of mix it all up. So I had painting, sculpture, the area was carpeted, and had clothing that I'd made and photographs, and it was all kind of mixed up, and I really enjoyed doing that. And it seemed like a real sort of turning point for me, because I'd gone on the MA because I just really wanted to change the way I worked, because I've been using photographs so much, and I wanted to break away from that, but I didn't really know how to do it. And because I've always liked making things, and I'm quite a practical person, it just seemed natural to use the facilities that they had at Chelsea. So I spent a lot of time in the foundry, and it really annoyed the tutors. They didn't like me spending so much time in there. Anyway, that's a different story. So this painting is the same painting from that work, which was called You're Not Going Anywhere, which is a similar thing to No More Stuck Inside, only we are liberated now in this show. And I really, really enjoyed painting on the wall, and a real sort of energy-led painting. And I really want to get back into that and do more of it. So it's just a case of finding surfaces that I can do that on. The painting itself, it's if you get to see it in person, it's quite thick, the paint. It's got glitter and other sort of jewels and stuff stuck on it, and then I paint over it. I like doing that. I like breaking up the surface and sort of, I don't know, it's a weird thing that I like sort of throwing a clog into the works, and it gives me something to sort of push up against. I don't know if you know what I mean. When I'm working, sometimes it's a bit too much, because I then decide I want to paint a really sort of fine pearl on top of it. But there's nothing like a challenge, and it gives you something to sort of get your teeth into. So yeah, I've done that there, and I don't know, it's a weird thing, slow painting. It's so sort of anti what we do now. But it's, for me, I feel most comfortable if I can just have things just hanging around in my studio, sometimes for years, like this one, for example. And because I think I've got this sort of theory that somehow paintings exist in their own dimension, and that it's my sort of task, if you like, or duty, to bring them into this dimension. But sometimes I'm not big enough to be able to do it. And so I might connect with the sort of being of the painting, but I'm just not grown up enough or good enough painter to be able to give birth to it or whatever. And so if it sort of hangs around and I grow up a bit, then gradually I'm sort of able to incarnate it somehow. And I think this is what has happened with this. And I don't know, you might think, oh, for God's sake, why doesn't she just, get more organized, draw it out and, paint it in? But I just don't work like that, and I can't. And when I knew that I'd won the prize and that I was going to have a show, I panicked a bit because I knew that I take so long to paint work that I'm really pleased with, and that I was really worried that I wouldn't have enough paintings. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go against the way that I work, and I'll just do like 10 big paintings that I'll basically draw them out and fill them in and see what happens. So I started to do it, and I was quite surprised that I could do fairly decent paintings, that they could pass in, as decent paintings, but I wasn't that happy with them, and so I've left them out of the show. But I don't ever think any work is wasted. I just think it's all part of the process, and the process basically means you're changing as a human being, and the paintings that you show are kind of like deposits on your journey. I'm sorry if I'm using all these terrible cliches, but cliches are truths that have been worn down a bit. So this painting, I'm pleased with it. It sort of exists apart from me, and I guess I could have worked on it a bit more. I could have made the pearls a bit more refined and all that, but I just got to the point where I thought, no, you can leave home now. And yeah, I'm pleased with it, and I hope it lives on somehow. I don't know, and I hope I'm able to do more like that. So yeah, Jonathan, do you want to go on to the next one? Yeah, this one is called The Magician Gets It. And this is one of those ones where I drew it out and I thought, I'm not going to spend 10 years tormenting myself over it. I'm going to enjoy myself and fill it in. And I did. I did just that. And towards the end, I had a bit of a wobble over the green body, and I think when it comes back to studio, I probably will live with it a bit, and then I'll do something else with the green body. But the rest of it, I'm actually really happy with, because it reminds me of a book I had when I was a kid. It was one of those 1970s annuals, and I was trying to find a picture of it earlier to show you at the end, but I couldn't find one on the internet. But as you probably noticed, that my work has got a lot of sort of vintage children's illustration kind of influences in it, and this is definitely one of those. Plus, I love painting geometric patterns, and I've only just really discovered that I love doing that. So, yeah, and it's got tarot cards in. So the magician is, you can't really see that, but in the middle of it, in her hair, there's a spike, and there's a tarot card of the magician, and it's been impaled on the spike. But in her other hand, she's holding the Lover's card. Yeah. I know what I wanted to say. It's about masks. It's painting faces like masks. I've done that since I was 16, when I first went to art school. And I think, I won't go into that much because it's, I don't know, it can get a bit deep. So, but I think you probably, as we go on, you'll see that a lot of the faces are like that. And that's how I enjoy painting them. When I was on the MA, the head of the course said to me, you would be a good painter if you didn't keep painting masks. And I just thought, well, I can't help it. That is what. Oh, thank you, Wendy Sheridan. She just sent me a nice message. And I just thought, well, that's how I like to paint faces. And I think it stems right back to early childhood. So I'm going to leave it there. Jonathan, do you want to move on to the next one? Okay, so in the show, I brought 4 works on paper, and I work a lot on paper because I get quite worn out. Like I was saying before, sometimes I get overwhelmed with that I can't, I've got a feeling for a painting because I see paintings a lot, like all the time in my mind. When I'm reading or watching the telly or listening to music, and there's just no way that I could get them all out. Having said that, some of the paintings in my show, you could say there's like 10 or 15 paintings in that one painting, and that I could, just take them apart and have way more space in them. And I think when I brought these works on paper to the gallery and we put them up, looking at them and then looking at the oil paintings, I really thought, right, next thing I want to do is just that. I want to make some canvases that are like these works on paper because they've got that space in them, and I've got, somehow with works on paper, I've got the confidence to have the space, and I was just really pleased with them also, the way they came out. And I think when I work with paper and pencils, and I've got acrylic gouache, it's just so free and easy. It's lovely. And I can just sit there, I can sit and get lost in it like a little kid. And I think that's most artists, most painters, would tell you that's when all the best things happen. So because I've got various sort of issues like with depression and dyslexia and various other things, sometimes I just I can't concentrate enough to really focus on my big paintings. And so I do loads and loads of works on paper and card, and they're not necessarily studies for big paintings, but I think maybe they could be. But they certainly keep you in a zone. And since Artist Support Pledge, it's also really good because people have realised that they can become art collectors and they can support you by buying your works on paper or card. I don't sell anything bigger than A3 on the Artist Support Pledge, but it's been really, really good. A good old thing. Thank you, Matthew Burrows, MBE. So Jonathan, shall we move on? So also with the works on paper, I really like doing like sort of archetypal things, like things sort of reminiscent of biblical stories.
Do you want to see it or not?
Yes.
And death, stuff like that. So this is just one of those. Unfinished Scene, it's called. So it's a bit like Death and the Maiden, I guess. yeah, can we go on to the next one? Yeah, talking about depression, this is a bit of a sort of obvious one. A Falling with the Rain, again, it's called. And it was actually a drawing made by my grandson, Ted, who's 6. So he must have drawn that when he was about 4. He drew me a rainbow, and then I drew on top of it and did a painting on top of it, because I just think children are the best artists. So he didn't mind that I drew on top of it. Yeah. Should we go on to the next one? This is Suicide Girls. Don't know what to say about that, really. Back to my teenage preoccupations, death and being thin and or not. Yeah. Next one. Right. Oh, this is called The Vixen. I think this is like my latest painting, I think. Yeah, it's, I don't know what to say about it. I don't want to explain what it is or why. But when I started, actually, when in a few more paintings along, when we come to Startled by Cats, I think that's the first cat painting that I did, with the woman who's lying down, and she's, she has bare breasts, and I had a bit of an issue painting that. So I kind of made it look a bit false, and I made the face look like a mask, and I felt more comfortable doing it like that. And I was really pleased with that painting, but I felt I had another one. So I then did another cat painting, and again it had another bare breast in it, and then but I still had more more in me. And so actually I can remember now what I was going to tell you about this. There's a painter called Paul Housley who I really like his work, and he's a really top fella as well. That he did this playlist, and on it had, I think it's Mary Hopkin singing this song called Lord of the Reedy River, and it's about a woman who falls in love with a swan. It's a fantastic song. I think Donovan wrote it. Anyway, while I was listening to this song over and over again, like I do, I saw this painting, and I tried to start painting a figure in water, a little bit like the sort of Leda and the Swan, that painting. Can't remember who it's by. I think there's a few of them anyway, because it's a sort of mythological thing. And I just couldn't get it to come out. And so I just gradually started adding animals to it. And I just thought, well, I love foxes. Even though they've eaten my hens several times, I still love them. And but you can see the water in the painting from where it started, and her torso was the figure of the woman who was in love with the swan. But then gradually, the swan got painted out and the foxes got painted in. And I just had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, I gradually I put the nuclear power no thanks sticker into it, because I felt there wasn't, because I like to have sort of cartoony references, and I felt it had become too much a sort of pastoral. So I put that in, and her headscarf is William Morris, and I really enjoyed. I like painting patterns, and I enjoyed doing that, and I want to do more of it. Yeah, and I love painting spectacles, as you probably noticed as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I don't really need to go on about how much I love the natural world and how much I love animals. I think it's fairly obvious that that's what keeps me going. And I've got a lot of animals that I look after, and I think probably partly my not being so prepared with a script for this talk was because I was looking after some animals before I came in. Anyway, should we move on to the next one? Or if anyone wants to ask me anything about what I've said so far, then just, please do. This is another one of those ones that's just was hanging around the studio for years, and actually started painting it, I think, when I was doing my MA. Completely different painting, and the only bit that is the same are the eyes inside the spectacles. I know a lot of people use the word psychedelic. Well, when I was at the opening, a lot of people used that word, and I guess I don't deliberately set out to make psychedelic paintings, but I think that I do have quite a lot of interesting brain juice. Maybe my own natural LSD. Plus, I grew up in the 70s and I love that kind of imagery. And I love 70s music, and I listen to that a lot, and 70s hairstyles and clothes. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with it. It's a little bit like Brian Calvin, I guess. Don't know if you know his work, but yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I don't want to promote smoking, in case anyone on here thinks that. I did get accused of that, and I don't smoke. Sometimes I smoke cigars, but I think it's just, I don't know what the word is, a tool. It's a visual tool. I think, the thing about somebody smoking, looking at you through smoke, it's quite a powerful thing, and it is to do with the self, I think. And that's why I like it. Yeah, so should we go on to the next one? This is one of those ones where it's just like, like I was saying, there's probably like 10 paintings in here. And it's another one that was just hanging around the studio for years and years. So it's called Milk Party. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. But oh yeah, I know that when I was painting cats, when I started painting these cats, it was really weird that they look like people I knew. And I realised, like, I was painting, it was in the first cat painting I did, that I painted my dad, who passed away, like, I don't know, 16 years ago or something. And it was really odd. And then next to that, I painted my grandson, all with cat faces. And in this one, I've painted my mother and myself and my partner. Yeah, so it's weird, but it's just one of those things you don't realise till you do it. And I think in a way it's like it's a weird way that I never could have thought up myself, to be able to paint the people in my life who've affected me, and perhaps that I have very mixed feelings around. And so painting cats that look, and it was subconscious. I didn't mean to paint my mum or my dad or anybody, but it just came out like that. And I had this sort of moment of realization what was going on. But I think that happens with painters. Well, it happens to me, that you can sit in your studio and just realize stuff about yourself that you wouldn't even right with years of therapy, you probably wouldn't have known. So yeah, I'll definitely sort of peopled a world there with characters that relate to human beings. I don't know if anyone's seen that film about Louis Wain. It's called The Electrical Life of Louis Wain. It's absolutely brilliant film. He painted cats, and he had a lot of problems. He ended up in the psychiatric hospital, and actually he's got in the Bethlehem Museum in Kent, I think it is, there's a show of his cat paintings on at the moment, which I'd love to go and see. But they're all doing funny things, you know, like human things. Yeah. Should we move on to the next one? Yeah, there we are again, smoking. This is, yet another one that has hung around the studio and was another painting. And if you can just about make out the painting underneath the lines. I don't know why I started doing these lines, but again, it's just one of those things that I've found really enjoyable, and it works. You know, it works to make a painting. And that one has got a lot of texture, and it's got glitter and sand and stuff in the paint. So yeah, that's smoking. Should we move on? Right, this is Satisfaction. And it's got it's got a baby cat drinking a bottle of milk. It's got a kitten doing a poo on a cushion, a 1970s cushion with a face that I got out of a vintage Penthouse magazine. Yeah, I don't know if you can really see the image properly, but that was my second cat painting. I was pretty pleased with it. I really like the hand in the middle. Yeah, and that again, it's painted over another painting. So if you see the glue in the corner, the painting was actually the other way around, and that was the floorboards. So no work is ever wasted with me. I just always use, and I think it's one of those things that a lot of painters say, oh, you overwork it, or, you can't paint over that, it's too lumpy. And if somebody tells me I can't do something, it just makes me want to do it even more. So, yeah. Next, please, Jonathan.
Sorry, Rosalind, can I just ask everyone just to put your mute buttons on? That'd be great. Wendy. Cheers.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Right, this is Poolside Floral, it's called, and that is actually started off as a woman wrestling with an octopus, but I decided that was a little bit too much. It was sort of along the lines of that famous Japanese painting, The Fisherman's Wife. But I thought, no, it's too much. So I took the octopus out and I made the water into flowers. And I just really enjoyed painting it. And it's mostly in flash paint. I don't know if you know about flash. It's just the most amazing, wonderful emulsion acrylic paint. When I say acrylic, it's not really like normal acrylics. It's a little bit like house paint, but it's got a lot of pigment in it, and it's an absolute joy to work with. And you get it in glass jars. And just looking at the the color charts is just, it sends you on one, you just see paintings. It's fantastic stuff. I love it. So that's mostly painted in that. Apart from her sunglasses, which I painted in oil. And when you put oil paint on top of flash, it just soaks it up, because it's so dry and so emulsiony. It's just a thrill. And I also love interference paint, which I've used as the grout, I think, on those tiles and some of the sort of organic forms at the back. And that's also quite a thrill to use. I love using that. And I don't know if you use it. It's basically, it has some kind of bleaching agent in it or something, and you can get different shades of it. And so you put it on top of ordinary paint and it changes the color, and it has a sort of iridescence, and it's just really good fun to work with. And I print with that a lot. I make sort of shapes with cardboard and print with it, and that's really good fun. I'm just like a little kid, really, when it comes to paint. I've got to be allowed to play. Yeah, so next, in the show, this is hanging next to another pool painting. So Jonathan, I don't know if you could, yeah, so those two are hanging together. This is Hot Tomato, and they're both the same size, and I think they look really nice together. And I think you can probably tell well, no, you can't tell that I went to LA, but you can tell that I've been somewhere other than Britain, because the light in California, it had such an effect on me that when I came back, I was only there for like 10 days or something. But when I came back, it just changed my painting. And this is when I started using flash paint and using bright colours and everything. And so this is flash and oil paint. So the tomatoes are sort of taken over. So it's got a slightly sinister sort of feeling to it. And I think I painted it it's partly to do with an incident in my childhood, being made to go to a swimming pool and I didn't have a bathing costume, but that didn't deter my mother from making me take my clothes off. And I just thought, I think I was traumatized by that. And because I wasn't really a child when it happened. And I think, but I wasn't a teenager or an adult either. And so it just wasn't appropriate to walk around as though I were a little child. And I think that's just lived with me. And I thought, I've got to make a painting where I own that somehow. I own that memory somehow. And so I made this, and I felt really sort of worried about painting a naked female form without a face, because when I'd seen other paintings, like I think there's a Glenn Brown one where he just takes the head off and it's just like a woman's body, and I remember looking at that, and it just made me feel angry. And I think most of my paintings are about empowerment, like personal empowerment, and this is definitely was the start of that. But I was very worried about that, her face is not directly looking at you. You can't really see her face because it's been almost either strangled by this vine, or that she's enjoying the fruit of this vine, regardless of you. She exists in her own glory, in her own right, in her own private world. And we're just sort of voyeuristically looking at her, or not, as the case may be. So, yeah, I mean, I'm over it now. I will, as you can tell, I will paint female bodies And, because I am one, I've got one. And I think it would be different if a man had painted that. Very different. So, yeah. Jonathan, should we move on? This is called Another Birthday. And this sort of marks it's like a sort of bridge painting between like the one that won the Beep, which is called Hummer Starter, which I'll show you later. You've probably already seen it. It's like a sort of bridge from that painting into putting different elements in, like a more naturalistic face, and perspective, and you can't really see because the image is very small. I don't know, it was on my phone. There's a birthday cake on the table, which is similar to Hummer Starter because it's got worms and cigarettes stubbed out in it and phone wires and stuff like that. But it's painted in oil. Yeah. The issue, actually, Hummer Starter was about my birthday, which I spent in LA, and it was a bit of a disaster. And this is also, another birthday. And I think when you get to my age, birthdays are like, oh God, not another one. I was still here. Yeah, and I used it's a painting that it has another painting underneath it. So I don't know what, I don't want to go on. I don't want to explain paintings, but I think that is what I'm doing. So anyway, should we move on? Yeah, this is Belters. This one is about Venice Beach, my trip to Venice Beach. And it was in the Plymouth Contemporary, which I won the year after I won the Beat Prize. It's quite a big painting. It's another one that was in the studio for quite a long time, and had a lot of things to resolve. I had to dare to do stuff that I was worried about doing, and but I'm glad I did, and it paid off. It's got dogs in it, and it's got a cat and a snail and budgies and flowers, and another vintage penthouse playmates. Yeah. Should we go to the next? Yeah, so this is Startled by Cats. This is my first cat painting, and it's got my dad in it there somewhere. Not the one that's licking the nipple, I might add. Yeah, and I had a lot of fun painting that. Again, it was in the studio for a long time. It was a different painting. It was a sort of Picasso-esque woman in an interior. It was taken to Chelsea. It was in a show. It came home, and then I painted that on it. And I think it was a leap. Painting cats, painting things that were so sort of illustrative that I'd avoided doing that before. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm pleased with it. Next. Yeah, again, this is from California. This is called Glendale Udon. It's road signs from around Glendale that I took a lot of photographs when we were walking around there. The fire hydrant, shopping bags, the hotel sign, the pool, trying to sort of find a way of, finding a composition that I felt happy with. It's quite unusual, really. I don't I haven't painted any more like that, I don't think, with the spaces in. But maybe, like I was saying, with the works on paper, maybe that's the way forward for me. I don't know, we'll see. Next. Artist's Eye, another one that is with the lines, psychedelic. Yeah, I know. And yeah, it has another painting underneath it. But I think it works, and I really enjoy painting these paintings. That every so often they will crop up in between the other ones. So yeah. I think, is that, oh yeah, well, here we are. This is Hummer Starter. That's the one that won the Beep. Yeah. And that's when I came back from LA, and I just decided that I didn't want to paint. I wasn't going to paint from photographs. I didn't want to paint fully in oil paint. I wanted to use different things. I wanted to just pull everything apart and do something different. And this is what came out. And, you know, I'm really glad I did it. And I was absolutely amazed to win the prize, because I'd never won anything before that. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Because we've got a few more to go. Yeah, this is, you know, still when I came back, and, you know, this is what I did. I finally got a studio, because when I was on the MA, I didn't have a studio. I didn't paint really, just made stuff. I painted a little bit. So when I finally got a studio, it was like, you know, a day at the races. You know, you couldn't stop me making all this stuff. This one's called Knee Socks and Knifophia. And this one is called Cougar. And it's really in your face, isn't it? The colours and everything. There's a lot of interference paint on that, and handprints, and, you know, Japanese mask, you know, because I thought, well, I was told that I'd be a good painter if I didn't paint masks, but I'm going to paint masks. You can probably guess what it's about. Yeah, next. Yeah, this is a landscape from California, from a photograph taken from the window of a bus. And I hadn't really painted landscapes for a long time. So yeah, it's called Truck Stop. Pretty weird, actual real truck high up on two poles. Yeah, and there's the only sign that there's any people in the painting is there's a car just driving away and the lights are on. So yeah, that was a bit of a sort of, I don't normally paint pictures like that, so it was a departure, shall we say. Next. This is single lens shot. This is when I started painting these interiors with the floorboards and the wall, like the screens, wallpapers, houseplants, and the you know, the female body being photographed with a camera that's also a gun. Yeah. So that was the sort of beginning of painting these kind of things. Yeah. I think is that the end, Jonathan? Oh, we got, it's funny. Yeah, that's, I think that's called solar flare. This is like, I think, you know, I was just sort of experimenting with, you know, flat shapes, figures, screens, floorboards, all that sort of stuff.
Would I be able to talk to you?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm just absolutely overwhelmed with your beautiful ability to capture vibrancy and shadow and shading, and I don't know how you get such strength in color, you know, such block color, but then have, it's like, oh God, it's just like real life. Because
Well,
you have
thanks.
the shadow, you know, and it's just, you create there's just shadowing is so amazing, but then it is so strong in the colors. It's quite mad, like, it's, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I think in the future, like I was saying earlier, I want to take things apart and have much bigger areas of color, you know, like energy led, and then to have, in contrast to that, to have these quiet, more sort of intently worked on areas. And I think it's I've been hoping to get that in these works, but I think what I need is to spread out more. And hopefully what you've said, you know, I can sort of live into that a bit more and make more of it. And, you know, it's really good to hear that. So thank you for that comment. And I've got a question. These are, by the way, these are some heads that I did. It's just another thing that I really enjoy doing. And because I love painting faces, but I find that if trying to paint things naturalistically, it doesn't always interest me that much. And I was trying to find a way, you know, to I think like now, you know, you can do it all. And I think a lot of the time, like looking at works on Instagram and stuff like that, I do sometimes wonder if if people know that Matisse and Picasso and all that existed, because it's almost as if, like, you know, they've been forgotten about. But I think you can do it all now. You know, you can take things apart, you can make faces, you know, in this way, or in, you know, you could do it like John Curran does it, and you can do it all, you know, if you want to. And I think I do want to, you know, want to do it all, and I can. And I really hope that I live long enough to be able to do it, because I've got so many sort of paintings in the transcendental waiting room. You know, and I wish I had more space, and I wish I had more money, so I could have, you know, bigger surfaces and stuff like that. But in the meantime, just getting it out on paper or card, and being lucky enough to have won the prize and be able to bought a box of these big canvases. And at the time I thought they were big, but now I think they're quite small, you know, and I'd love them to be bigger. But anyway, I'll just answer that. We've got a question. Oh, maybe we've got more. Oh, yeah. Are there any publications on your work? No, there aren't. All I can say is have a look at my website and follow me on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. So Jonathan's just going through some images that I want, that are my childhood influences. So that's Sweet Wrappers from the 1970s. That's Barry Latigan. These images of these women's faces and the hair, there's like soft focus and the makeup. I think I just remember looking at these when I was a kid in my mum's magazines, and just like taking me in another world. So I put that in, but I don't know, if you look him up, I think he's been disgraced, like, you know, like so many of these celebrities are, for doing naughty things. But his work in the 70s, photographic work, is amazing. So have a look at it if you're interested. And yeah, there he is. My God, when I was 4 years old, and I saw Mark Bolan on the telly, I just I had a sort of epiphany. And I remember thinking, oh, there are people like me in the world. I'm not the only one. And I just, I asked my mum to buy me Telegram Sam. And yeah, I was obsessed. Not just Mark Bolan, but, David Bowie and all the rest of it. And yeah, Corona, it's frothy, man. All this sort of sweet wrappers, 70s labels, bright colours. It really has, you can't ignore your childhood, what you grow up with image wise, can you, as a painter? I don't think. Oh yeah, this is one of my favourite painters, Hans Baldung Grien. He was a pupil of Dürer. And look at the composition of that. It's just amazing. And I think it's Witch's Sabbath. So the subject and the composition and the humour and the eroticism. And it's all like done in I don't know, was it 14 something, 15 something, 1510 maybe? I love his work. It's fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, Hockney, big influence when I was a kid. I had that postcard, and I love Ozzy Clarke's clothes, and I've got some in my wardrobe, and they're worth a fortune. But I got them when I was about 15, and there was some great vintage clothes shops in Liverpool, and I bought them. And I've kept them all these years. And I think a couple of things I've got was a Bieber jacket. It's in the Victoria and Albert Museum, and an Ozzy Clarke dress, the same one is, yeah. So yeah, I just, this is like a big influence on me as a kid. And it's got a cat in it. Now this is Richard Dad. A little bit like Louis Wayne, only he was dangerous because he murdered his father, I think, with a pair of scissors. And he was sent to an asylum where he painted the most incredible paintings. And this one's called the Fairy Fella's Master Stroke. And we had a postcard of that in the house, and it was round. Sort of weird 70s round postcard, and I remember I loved it so much that I cut out a paper doily, the edges, and I stuck it all the way around the postcard, because I just loved it so much, and I got told off. My mother got so angry with me. She didn't understand what I was trying to do, obviously. But yeah, I lived with that painting, and I used to see fairies and stuff like that when I was a child. I used to see things that other people couldn't see. So I was in a little world of my own. And this is Holman Hunt's Triumph of the Innocents, and it hangs in the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool. I used to go there a lot, there, and the Lady Lever Gallery, and it's full of pre-Raphaelite painting, and that just definitely had a massive influence on me. I remember sort of being about 3 foot tall, looking up at these paintings and thinking it's paint, but it isn't paint, and that just really fascinated me. The thing of that you can create this sort of trick, I guess, is what it is. That you even as a painter, as soon as you make a mark and the brain says it looks like something, you enter into that world, into that sort of illusion. And that really got me as a kid, that somebody could do that and had done it. And you could just see past the paint into this image, into the story, into the sort of sophistication of what a painting can do and the power of it. And yet, when you looked again, it was just paint on a surface. And I don't know, I think it's it's just such a weird and mysterious thing, isn't it? Painting. But yeah, I think that we're at the end now.
Yeah, there's another question by Tom Banks. So another
hi, Tom.
Previous Beat winner. So he's said here, I love your world building and really enjoy the 70s acid colouring and figuration that's reminiscent of children's picture books from those days of yore. Do you remember Masquerade by Kit Williams, a picture book with clues to a buried jewel-encrusted silver rabbit?
No, I don't remember that. But if I look it up, it might jog my memory. Oh, Jenny Jones is here and she says she remembers it.
There we go.
Hi, Jenny. Yeah. So, no, thanks, Tom. No, there's a lot of, a lot of stuff from childhood. A lot of it is the telly, I'm sorry to say, but I think the telly was childminder when I was a kid. And, I still love watching the telly now. I'm there in body, but I do sort of disappear into my own little world while I'm watching it and see paintings and stuff like that. Yeah. So was it Amy had a couple of questions, Jonathan?
She did. Hang on a second. Hold on. So, right. So she's got 3 questions altogether. So question 1 was, does the work fulfill a need to disappear into a different realm, like a kind of rewilding, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know if it does for the viewer. Probably. I mean, when I look at paintings, that often happens to me. But as the person creating them, I definitely am going into my own world. And I think making paintings is, in a way, creating your own world from which you can make sense of the real world. So yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
And like I said, I do think paintings sort of want to exist. They want to sort of be born into this world, but they can strangely take you out of it. And that's happened to me a couple of times when I'm looking at art, that I've had a sort of strange transcendental experience. And so I know it is possible because it's happened to me. One of them was looking at Bonnard's The Palm. I was standing in front of it, looking at it, and then I wasn't standing there anymore. I could hear all the sounds, the wind blowing, the sounds of the birds, the sunlight. It was just the most amazing, weird experience, but that's the power of painting. And then I came back. So I think it was the Hayward Gallery. And a similar thing happened to me in Berlin, in the Gemäldegalerie, that I heard the paintings talking. And I thought, and it was as though that it was a language that was dying, and that that only a few people could understand. It was just a very strange experience, but I think it is possible for paintings to do that to people. And I heard on the radio recently that a man said that a painting spoke to him. I can't remember what it said, but he wasn't an artist. I think he was an army captain or something. Unlikely sort of person that you'd think would hear painting speak, but he heard this painting telling him something that he needed to do in his life. I thought, I'm not the only person then. Yeah. Okay. So what was the other question?
There's two more. She Amy says, I love the collections of objects in your work alongside the different types of cats. Do you have personal collections of objects? If so, what are your favorite, and does that inform your work?
No, I mean, objects, I used to buy a lot of like vintage things, little knickknacks and stuff like that, and have them on a shelf. I've still got some of them, but I think as you get older you try to clear out, and I'm not a very tidy person, so I feel guilty about collecting anything. But having said that, I do collect images, so even though they're not physical images, I will collect stuff that I see on Instagram, on usually vintage illustrations or photography. Like I love Guy Bourdin photography and Paul Outerbridge and things like that. So I do collect images. I can't stop doing that. And I take loads and loads of photographs all the time. So I collect things in that sense, but not actual objects. I do have quite a lot of animals. I've got tortoises, hens. I was a beekeeper. Dogs, cats, horse. So, and children. Got loads of children. Yeah.
Well, I think this maybe goes into the next question then. Tess has got a question for you as well, but I'll just go through Amy's final question. What is the meaning of the sudden injection of violence, as she's put here, and distasteful amongst the soft, bright and fun paintings? We discussed this before. We wasn't sure. I don't think she meant distasteful as such, but kind of more the kind of the behaviour of some of the cats, and kind of like some of the, I suppose, what they're doing.
Yeah. I
naughtiness.
Don't know.
Naughtiness, I think that's
okay. Yeah, I mean, I've got an issue with taste and notions of taste. I hate it. I think it's just very, very middle class, and it controls people through fear. I hate it. So I actually love so-called tasteless things. I don't know, maybe I've got a sort of visual Tourette's or something. I don't, obviously I don't want to paint just sweet, sugary paintings of cats. The thing about cats and why I started using them is they're so useful and they're so interesting that they're sort of dangerous, and yet at the same time they're cuddly. And it's not the sort, like if you try and make a painting with dogs, you've got a problem, because dogs are basically far less sophisticated, whereas cats, they have so many different nuances. They're very useful for making images and telling stories and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, but there is violence in life. There is there is naughtiness. There a lot of emotions that you might want to or need to express or put into your paintings, and you can do that. Like in one of the paintings, one of the cats has got a rose stuck in its bottom with thorns on the thing, because you can do that in a painting. No animals were harmed in the making of this painting, but yeah, I mean, you can use it for comic effect, you can use it for all sorts of effects, but I don't want to create sugary, totally pleasant images. You can put that in, but they have to be dangerous, they have to be menacing, they have to make you feel a bit uncomfortable, and so as well as make you laugh, and all the rest of it. So yeah.
Okay. And Tess's question: do you decide on a direction for the mood of a painting beforehand, or does that just come with the development and come naturally in a less controlled way?
I think it's like I have a vague feeling of what I want, and what the colours are going to be like, and what the composition. Sometimes I think, I really want to do a painting where it's got somebody or something that is flying across it in the centre, and it will be as basic as that, and then you just see if you can make it work. And then as you're working, all these sort of things happen, and I hope that the painting tells me what it wants to be, and not the other way around. I don't think I'm the queen, but having said that, I do need to command. But it's like a sort of conversation. I hope this doesn't sound sort of wanky, because it might sound a bit wanky to people who don't paint, but it is like a conversation that you try things out, and okay, it's not working, and it just gets more and more sort of involved. And I don't draw them out. I don't, because I just it just never works when I do that. And if I set out to think I really want to paint about all my trauma or whatever, it never works. So I just have to set out on the journey fully equipped and trained up with all my equipment and my tenacity, and show up every day if I possibly can, and just work and see what happens. And it's yeah, and it's a bit like climbing a mountain, all the roundabout way. Get there at the end.
Great. Nick asks, what do you think is the biggest change you have noticed in your work over the course of your practice?
Yeah, well, when I did the MA, I didn't really paint at all, and then I started, I was making a lot of sculptures and stuff like that, and that wasn't really happy either. And then the tutor said to me, like, what about like when you're a teenager? Because I posted a picture of me. I was kind of like a goth. I wasn't really a goth, because goths were like a big sort of tribe, and I wasn't in a tribe. But I used to wear 70s disco clothes and have all different colour hair, and people used to chuck eggs at me in the street. I looked so mad. It's not crazy now, but back in those days it was, it was kind of, people didn't take to it at all, whereas now you can dye your hair pink or whatever, and it's normal. You get tattoos. When I got my first tattoos, nobody really had tattoos unless they were criminals or whatever. So so my tutor said, why don't you work with that? So then I started making work that was like photographic. It was like me dressing up in these sort of personas, and I had narratives, sort of semi-autobiographical narratives, and I really just took off making work like that, and writing, and sort of using philosophical quotes and stuff like that, and humor, and mixing it all up, and it really, I just made all this work, all this different body of work, and And so that was a massive change. But at the same time, it was also kind of going back to stuff I'd done years and years ago, because I did used to do a lot of photographic work when I was a lot younger, of myself, you know, performing actions and stuff like that. But when I left college and I actually got a studio and I went to LA, came back, and I just started making these paintings using the really bright colours, not using photographs. And that just felt really sort of dangerous for me, because before it was all about sort of skill and it was about beauty. And, you know, I sold my paintings to people locally because I don't know, that it was like sort of pastoral images, a little bit weird, but still, you know, they could hang in anybody's home and they not be freaking people out. Whereas now I sort of had to make a leap into something where I know a lot of people just can't cope with those colours, and you know, or they just don't get it. So yeah, that was a massive change, but I'm so glad that I was able to do it. And, you know, obviously it's worked, because I won prizes and I'm here talking to you. Yeah. I still have a bit of a wobble sometimes, and I think, you know, maybe I should just, you know, go back to doing that, but I can't go back. You know, hopefully I can sort of, you know, it is like a spiral of it, isn't it? You know, you can go back, but you've got to go forward and take what you learned with you. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think we'll finish with this question. So this is from Steph. She asks, were the cat paintings built on top of older images, born out of older images, or did you begin with a clear vision of them from the start?
No, like the Startled by Cats one was painted on it was actually the other way up, and I was trying to do like a sort of Picasso-esque female figure, which I did, but I just wasn't doing it for me, and I sort of lived with it for a year or so. And then I think what I wanted to do was I wanted to paint an image of a woman covered in bubbles. I think because I've got like vintage sort of Penthouse magazines, and they're all full of like funny like images like that. And I thought, well, going back to Amy's question, I didn't want to paint just a woman with bubbles, because, you know, there's no sort of danger in that or anything. So what would be dangerous if you were naked and you had loads of bubbles around you? Something with claws. And that's how that happened. I just started painting a cat, and like Toxicara got into my painter brain and made me buy more cats. So it just turned out, you know, more and more cats got into the painting, and weird things started happening. Like, you know, like I was saying, you know, saw my dad who passed away years ago, then I saw my grandson, you know, and so on, and it just went on like that. So yeah. But I always paint on top of old paintings. I never waste anything. Yeah. I don't have I always think, like, if I have a vision from the start, it's never as good as what comes out in the end, because I think the higher powers that be, whatever they might be, say the higher powers of painting, always know better than my little mind does. So yeah, I don't, my vision is very small, but the vision of the sort of transcendental waiting room of paintings vision is way, 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 way bigger than mine. So I hand it over to that to take care of, and it's just a case of me showing up and working, and then the muse can visit, sort of thing. Yeah, I think I've talked way too much now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rosalind.